I want to talk about how emotional intelligence is crucial for unlearning negative behavior and habits and transforming ourselves with a new holistic and balanced way of being. So, people surprisingly rarely change their lives or their bad habits, especially big ones that they've probably had for many years. For example, in a typical motivational seminar that's supposed to help people transform their lives, how many people do you think actually make the change? Well, studies show it's actually less than 10% of the people will actually form a new set of behaviors and habits once the energy and the motivation and the positivity of the post-seminar hangover ends, which usually lasts for a few days. But beyond that is when it becomes hard to sustain that sort of passion and motivation. So there's a good reason for this. Nearly all of our memory, behavior, and habits are systematically unconscious. In fact, neuroscientists estimate that these processes in our brain are about 12% conscious mind and 88% subconscious mind, meaning it's below our conscious awareness. Learning, change, and behavior formation takes place in the unconscious, the instinctual and emotional part of your brain. We now know from neuroscience that people generally do not behave rationally and logically. Rather, they rationally pursue emotional satisfaction, something that is very far from behaving rationally. The famous English biologist Thomas Huxley once said, "What we call rational grounds for our beliefs are often extremely irrational attempts to justify our instincts." An alcoholic or drug addict can rationally work out ways to get his hands on more alcohol, but addiction is a catastrophic disease that no one would rationally choose to inflict on themselves. Reason is often put to counterproductive uses that, if properly analyzed, are irrational and driven by emotion and desire rather than logic. War, consumerism, and addiction all come to mind here. Yet, there is no escaping from emotion and desire. The central question is, how do we bring balance and harmony to our emotion, desire, and reason? The first step to understanding how to change your old behavior and habits is to acknowledge that you aren't going to overcome these things with a triumphant act of superhuman will. What you need to do is develop the awareness of your body and mind through mindfulness, and then you can start to challenge and transform the problems you have at their root. Instead of going after the effects of the symptoms, which is what our medical system often does, mindfulness and emotional intelligence builds our characteristics and changes us in a very holistic way. If you want to develop the right mindfulness skill to understand and respond to emotional triggers, then you need to sit with these emotions, these difficult behaviors. And if you can sit with them, they will start to go away. For example, if you are aware of and you manage your addictive triggers or anger, your problems with addiction or anger or hostility, essentially the behavior issues, will start to go away. It's the awareness that allows you for the change, like admitting you have a problem in a sense. And there's a fundamental kind of like a rule, a natural law here, that when you sit with an emotion, if it's a negative emotion, it's going to slowly dissolve. And if it's a really deeply seated negative emotion or insecurity, it's not going to dissolve right away or in a few days or maybe even a few weeks. But if you continue to sit with it, it will gradually dissolve. And if you sit with a positive emotion, it will expand. So if you feel pretty good and you sit with it, it's actually going to grow into joy, into this all-pervading joy that experienced meditators get into on a consistent basis, because this is really our natural way of being that is often hidden from us by a society that's very outward, material oriented. So this is a cycle of addiction. When we think of addiction, we usually think of drugs, food, maybe sex, but we all have smaller addictions that suck our energy and make us feel powerless to change them. The place in this cycle where we have the opportunity to break it is at the stage of the emotional trigger and the stage of craving. The secret to releasing the difficult emotions and breaking the cycle of addictive craving is to bring your awareness to them and observe them in your body without judgment or analysis. When thoughts come up around the feelings, you simply use mindfulness, the mindfulness techniques in this course, to observe them without any form of reaction. So this is very difficult at first, but it works extremely well. When we feel uncomfortable cravings or aversions to something, or negative emotions like anxiety and fear, the unconscious habitual reaction is to try to react to them, which magnifies them usually, or escape from them with the fight or flight instinct. Yet, Carl Jung says, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So we are not prisoners of fate. And people like Carl Jung have spent most of their lives writing about how to become conscious of the unconscious forces that drive us. And really, the unconscious mind has a strong tendency to repress unresolved negative emotions and trauma. And this creates blocks in our energy systems that drain and reduce our creativity, our vitality, and our overall energy. It may seem counterintuitive, but the way to free ourselves from these addictive cravings and addictions themselves is to mindfully observe them as they arise and pass away in our feelings and our thoughts. You will feel these cravings or aversion at the heart of this emotional reactive loop, and they will ebb and flow like waves on an ocean. At times, the feelings may seem overwhelming, but if you persist, the feelings will diminish because all of our feelings are impermanent. The mindful way of dealing with emotional reactive loops is the opposite of the typical way of introspectively analyzing our problems, which usually guarantees they will persist. To break these negative emotional reactive loops, mindfulness helps us observe them without attaching ourselves to these feelings, which allows us to develop deeper empathy and compassion for ourselves. With more emotional intelligence, you can overcome all the cravings and aversions that lie at the root of your negative behavior and habits. Combined with the mental muscles of focus that you build in the daily practice of meditation, you can use mindfulness to short-circuit these negative emotional feedback loops, and this will dramatically increase your overall vitality and creativity.